What do 35% tariffs then mean for the nation of Canada and its trade with the U.S.?
Well, 35% tariffs, as Paul just mentioned, it doesn't actually, it's not going to be as impactful as it might seem initially on the headline when you read it, because the USMCA and goods traded through USMCA trade deal are actually exempt. In other words, the majority of trade between Canada and US, so think machinery, auto, and auto parts, all of that will be exempt from the higher 35% tariff. It's also not that much higher than where we are already at the 25% level. So that's potentially why we're seeing markets not trading as much on this, even though the loonie obviously had some fluctuations earlier. And it's also kind of remains to be seen, right? Like we've seen this game before where there's a tariff announcement, it gets moved back, especially for Canada, because Canada still needs to have this negotiation with the U.S. and Mexico about updating the USMCA. So there's kind of an open question. Will this tariff go into place before then? Will it just be used as a negotiating tactic as they continue speaking? So it's not overall not as maybe big of a deal as first thought.
Katia, what is the state of play, meanwhile, for U.S. trading partners that have yet to receive letters? Canada has received that letter. Now President Trump, there was an assumption that the baseline tariff would be 10%. Now President Trump is putting a question mark over that.
Yes, it was a huge week in tariffs. I mean, even starting from Monday, we got the tariff letters on all of these economies that went up to the double digits. They were kind of mostly in line with what we saw on Liberation Day. And there's a few economies who are still in negotiation. So Japan and South Korea really actively trying to bring those levels down and try to avoid getting those tariffs in place before August 1st. But the 20% level is interesting strategy, because it would effectively double what markets and economists had expected from President Trump on the universal level, and basically doubling the economic damage. And then the question becomes, well, is this just sort of a tactic from President Trump, who, as Paul just mentioned, he monitors the markets. The markets aren't moving too much. It will just embolden him to take further steps and raise tariffs further until those markets start reacting, at which point he dials it back. And the answer right now, at least for today, we're not sure, but I mean, we can expect next week to be full of more surprises as well.
To next week, Katia, then, what are you and the team going to be watching for as the tariff story unfolds towards what is now apparently the new deadline of August the 1st?
Well, there's going to be a lot of action in terms of scrambling for further talks. We have Scott Bessent and Lutnick in Japan next week, for example. We're also going to get a lot of economic data that's going to really underscore what's at risk here for economies. So Japan and China, we're getting just a slew of data from across the economy, from the unemployment rate to inflation, labor market dynamics, and GDP, of course, in China's case. And it's going to show what's at risk. It's going to show how exports continue to really stay weak on the back of tariffs, and not just tariffs, but uncertainty. It might show that investment and industrial production is likely weakening on the back of the uncertainty as well. We're seeing price pressures. So already companies across Asia are paying for the tariffs in a way, because they're negotiating with the U.S. and their U.S. companies that they supply, and they're going to have to knock down those prices further likely. So we're going to see a lot of that in the trade data next week, starting from Monday.